Well, Happy New Year's, January 1st, 2022. And I hope everybody had a good celebration last night or whatever, or just got to bed early and got some rest, whichever suited you. And but anyhow, a bunch of things going on. Of course, I always find it interesting at the end of this whole thing, goodbye last year. This year is going to be great. And then, of course, well, not always. I mean, certainly as 2019 ended and 2020 came, I think that everything didn't turn out great that year, that's for sure. And I don't know, I guess by and large, 2021 was a bit better than 2022, except for politics and inflation and, well, yes, gas prices and, well, yes. So anyhow, so that's the way it goes. But at any rate, try to be good humored about it. So a bunch of things, I guess, on the agenda. On the positive side, the James Webb Space Telescope is on its way to its ultimate location, I guess, in orbit around the sun, where it will be able to, monitor and start looking at galaxies and planets and everything else, which we're looking forward to. I'm particularly interested in the cosmological aspects of this thing, and so that'll be very interesting to see, and hopefully it will deploy successfully. I guess so far nothing's gone wrong as far as I know. I kind of checked before this morning to see if there was any reports. Everything seems to be proceeding, but they're saying it's a long ways to go. At least the solar panels are deployed, and I think the sun shield thing is deployed. So we'll have to see what happens next on that. And by the way, if you like these videos, please subscribe and give me a like, and any comments would be appreciated, of course. On the political front, of course, we have the meeting, the phone call meeting between Putin of Russia and our own president, Joe Biden. And supposedly Joe Biden really laid down the law there, so I don't know if that really worked or not. My own opinion on this is we ought to negotiate a deal with the Russians, because I don't know. First of all, we need to really get a clear hint in my mind is what is it the Russians really want? I mean, do they really want to try to take over Ukraine and involve themselves in a really nasty guerrilla war for years, which will get them continually being attacked for human rights abuses, plus a lot of casualties? Do they want to annex small pieces of it? Or do they want to respect its territorial integrity, but they just want certain security guarantees? The latter, I think, is possible if everybody's reasonable. One fly in the ointment, of course, the historic bad blood between Russia and Ukraine. I mean, sort of the famine that Stalin imposed on the Ukrainians back in the 1930s, I mean, is still, I'm sure, a lingering agitation point here. Similar to the Armenian versus Turkish conflict over the massacre of Armenians and that whole debacle. I mean, so you have those kind of issues, but I definitely think this is not something anybody should want to fight a war with over this. This is clearly in Russia's backyard, and hey, the United States occasionally invades a country in our backyard too, like, I don't know, Haiti and Panama. So, I mean, we have to get a little more reasonable about what would be in our interest, in my opinion, is to try to get Russia a little bit away from China and try to pivot them to give China a little bit of problem so they aren't spending all their time thinking about Taiwan. But anyhow, we'll have to see if that's feasible or not, or if anybody has the common sense to try it. On other topics, of course, the big news that everybody's focused on is the current COVID surge, the Omicron variant. And so far, I've been looking at the charts. I mean, it's been spiking it to record high levels of daily positive tests, I guess I should say. I guess we're getting above 500,000 in one day. Of course, it depends on the data I get is from the Johns Hopkins, and I don't get a breakdown by what day it was really recorded. I think the CDC gets that kind of data where we get it just aggregated when it comes in, and it often comes in late because of holiday timeouts and things of that sort. But it's really at all-time record high positivity rates, although there's no sign yet of increased fatalities due to it. And however, that's not necessarily most of the daily fatalities tend to average from people that got infected maybe in the mid-December. And at that time, the bulk of the infections were Delta, which is a much deadlier strain based on international reports from South Africa and the UK. So, but as we go forward in the next week or so, we'll begin to see, and certainly within 2 weeks, we'll know whether or not this thing is a real killer or whether it really is a seriously milder variant. And that's, as we, move forward in that timeline. It seems to me like at this point we're probably going to experience that the Omicron will start actually crowding out the Delta, that it's more infectious and it gets in there first, apparently, and infects people. And as near as I can tell, it does provide some immunity, sort of like a vaccine would. So that when you get the Omicron, which is a less deadly variant, it may rev up your immune system to the point that when you get exposed to Delta, it's prepared to fight it. And so it's kind of like a contagious vaccination without much choice. So we'll see if that works out. It's an idea I threw out a few videos ago, and it's looking like it might really be true now based on I was looking at some other comments from some doctors in Britain that talks about this subject. And he seems to be a bit lower level head than some of our domestic people tend to be, where it's all a big political controversy. He seems to be, in the middle ground, let's call it, looking at all the evidence from both sides of various debates. He's both pro-vaccine and pro-ivermectin. Okay, so in other words, he's not really one way or the other. And I think he understands that the vaccine isn't a perfect protection, but is simply something that reduces the chance of fatality and serious illness. Okay, so that's kind of what's happening on that front. And of course, the domestic front is still, the good thing is Congress is out of session. The bad news is they're coming back in a few days. And we don't know how things are going to pan out this year. It looks like we at least dodged the horrible Build Back Better, as it's called, bill, or I call it Build Back Worse for now. And we'll have to see what happens. It seems to me that one thing you have to remember, that there's enough Democrats to pass some kind of bill that's still going to be kind of expensive. The issue is, since Manchin is blocking going up to $5 trillion like they were passing through the House, the question is, can the Democrats agree on what to cut out of the bill to get it within the $1.7 to $1.8 trillion level, spread over a legitimate 10 years, at least based on CBO estimates, the Congressional Budget Office. Again, I don't guarantee those are totally accurate either. They're probably also low, but at least they're more credible than ones that are deliberately rigged, let's say. And the question is, can the Democrats agree on which programs to cut back, which ones to mean test, and which ones just to throw out? Or will they get in such an internal squabble over their pet program that they can't come to an agreement and they'll run out the clock on this Congress? Well, that's what I hope for, but I wouldn't guarantee it. So that's still a live issue out there, And of course, we have Supreme Court hearings on the various mandates that are coming up, and a variety of things of that sort to deal with. So at any rate, welcome to the new year, and I hope everybody has a good one. I guess I unfortunately sometimes focus a bit on some of the negative things, but hopefully some positive stuff will happen. Hopefully inflation doesn't get too high, and so forth. So at any rate, just wishing everybody happy New Year's. By the way, the addresses of my social media sites are linked in the links below. You can follow me on Twitter. I do post there fairly frequently, and sometimes on the other two, although I definitely post links to these videos on all of them. So we'll call it a close for today, let's say, and until next time.